Peace.
Okay, Chebra, B'ezrat Hashem, let's get started here. David, thank you for sponsoring. And Yosef, thank you for arranging and hustling and doing what needs to be done. Really, todah rabah.
And make a deal.
And making deals, exactly. Really, it's a big help to have people taking care of things. It's really a big help. L'chaim, l'chaim. What should we learn for a Fuah Shleima for Jacob, maybe? Yaakov ben Dinah. Should be a zchut that he has a quick recovery. We should only hear b'sorot tovot, good news, b'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so we're going to actually continue on with the story that we left off with last week. Last week, if you remember, we were speaking about how Haman told the greatest Lashon Hara. Remember we spoke about this last Sunday? Yeah. It's been a while since then. A couple shiurim in between. Yeah. But Haman was the greatest Baal Lashon Hara, Lashon Hara.
But he
twisted everything. Right?
Very smart.
And Achashverosh ultimately accepted. He accepted what he was saying. He agreed. So we're going to look now at the Gemara on the bottom of the Gimel Amud Bet in Megilla, the end of the conversation. The Gemara tells us that after giving this argument why the Jews should be destroyed, Haman said, I am willing to pay Aseret Kikar Kesef, 10,000 talents of silver, in order to buy the Jewish people and destroy them. You understand? He was giving I don't know what you would call that in English, like he bought the Jews to destroy them. He said, if you want, Achashverosh, I'll give you this tremendous sum of money, and it'll give me the right to write a letter sending to all the countries in the world that the Jews will be destroyed on a specific day.
But the king needs his money?
Oh, the king didn't need his money, but it was a way of him saying, I'll lock this in, right? I'll lock it in.
Bribe the king.
So it's kind of like a bribe. It's a purchase.
You don't have to pay me that.
Oh, so let's see.
Yeah.
So let's see the Gemara now. So this is after his whole arguments. Now he says like this. Im Adoni HaMelech, sorry. Im al HaMelech tov yikatev la'obdam v'aseret alafim kikar kesef v'chulei. It says, v'gomer. If the king wants, I'll give 10,000 talents of silver. It's like a weight. And I'm buying the Jews and I'm going to be allowed to destroy them, which is what happened. He wrote out the letter, sent it out to all the kingdoms.
He gave the king the 10,000.
He gave him the signet ring. Oh, so what happened? Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says like this. Actually, this ties into this last week Parashah. We know last week, this Shabbat, yesterday, we read Parashat Shkalim. Parashat Shkalim is a reference to how when the Jews lived in Eretz Yisrael and there was a Beit HaMikdash, they used to give machatzit shekel. What is machatzit shekel?
Taxes.
Half of a shekel. When would they begin those donations?
Rosh Chodesh Adar.
Beautiful. Rosh Chodesh Adar, the Beit Din would announce, it's time for everyone to give machatzit shekel. Why would they start announcing it then?
Why? They start to collect them because they start the korbanot in Rosh Chodesh Adar.
Excellent. Because what were those coins used for? It was a particular type of usage. For korbanot tzibur. They were used for public offerings. Exactly, learning Gemara Rosh Hashanah. So they give them a month of heads up because in Nisan, which is the month later, they would start using this money for the public offerings. So the Gemara says like this: Amar Reish Lakish, Galoi v'yadua lefnei misha amar v'haya olam. Hashem knew she'atid Haman lishkol shkalim al Yisrael, that Haman was going to try to buy the Jews with this 10,000 talents of silver. Lefikach hikdim shiklehen lishkalav. He gave them a mitzvah. Hashem gave the Jews a mitzvah of machatzit shekel years before, for the last hundreds of years, where they were giving every year to the Beit HaMikdash, and that acted as a kapara in advance to cover up for what Haman would try to purchase later. Stakat tatzil mimavet, and also it's like the idea we mentioned the other day, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makdim rofeh lemakah. What does it mean? Meaning, he gave the resolution, which was the zchut, that the Jews had to be saved before Haman even purchased them, which was machatzit shekel. Yeah.
It says when we read Parashat Shkalim, it says Kesef HaKippurim.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's the money for Purim.
Kippurim, for Purim.
It's the money for Purim.
Beautiful.
They gave the money for Purim.
Beautiful, beautiful, excellent. So I'm going to skip the next piece, and then the Gemara says like this. He says to the king, Vayomer HaMelech LaHaman, the king said to Haman, you're offering me a great offer, but HaKesef natun lecha, keep your money, v'ha'am la'asot bo ketov be'einecha, and you could do whatever you want with the nation. Meaning, Achashverosh was on the same train as Haman. He was a Sonei Israel. Some people might read the story and think, he really loved the Jews, he turned around, and things worked out. He was a Sonei Israel, and he was just as happy for the Jews to be destroyed as Haman. He just was concerned that if he destroys them, Hashem will punish him. That was what we spoke about. Amar Rabbi Abba explained this relationship with a mashal, with a parable. Turning to Yudalad Amud Aleph. Mashal da Achashverosh ve'aman lema davar domeh. What is the comparison to this relationship between Achashverosh and Haman? L'shnei b'nei Adam, two people. I think I spoke this out last week, but let's see it inside. Two people. Le'achad haya lo tel b'toch sadeyu. One of them had a mound of dirt in his field. He had extra dirt. Wanted to get rid of it.
And the one that wants to collect it.
You remember I mentioned this, right?
Yeah.
The other one had a ditch in his field. Baal Charitz Amar, the one who had a ditch, said, I would pay for somebody to bring dirt and fill in the hole. Balatel Amar, and the one who had the mound of dirt, said, who would give me a ditch that I could put my dirt into? Means they had the same interest in mind. Liyamim, after some days, nizdavgu ze itzel ze, they bumped into each other, these two landowners. Amarlo bal charitz lebalatel, so the one who had the ditch said to the one who had the mound of dirt, Mechor li telcha, sell me your dirt, and I will fill my hole with it, I'll pay you. Marlo, so the other fellow says back, Tolota bechinam, take it for free, v'halavai. That's wonderful. Just take the dirt, no problem. Take the dirt, you don't even need to pay me for it. I want it to be removed.
They basically bought and elite.
So what's the nimshal? What is the lesson back to Achashverosh and Haman?
It worked out perfectly for him.
The be'etzem, they both had the same interest. What was their interest? To destroy the Jewish people.
He would make his hands dirty for him.
Exactly. Actually, Haman says, I'll take care of it. Exactly. And Achashverosh is totally agreeable to this. He has no problem. He's not a big Jew lover. You want to pay me for it? Don't worry about it. Don't have to pay me. You're doing me a favor. That's the nimshal. So, already, in this point in the story, you already start to see all directions were pointing in a very bad place for the Jewish people. And that's what Haman does. He takes the signet ring, he signs a letter, the signet ring of the king. It used to be the king had a ring that you would sign letters with, and if you sign that letter, the rule is, you send it out, it cannot be reversed. Non-reversible. It's impossible to change it. What you could do is send another letter, but you can't reverse a letter once it's been sent out. And that's what happened. They sent out, it's actually the second letter, because the first letter was Kol Ish Soreh Bebeito. Every man will be a officer in his house after the story where Vashti was killed. The second letter, which is this letter, was sent out now saying, on the 13th of Adar, the day that we're going to wipe out all the Jews, all the Goyim in all of the countries, 127 provinces, will band together and destroy all the Jews in their region.
But the Jews fight. He was not reversed. They fight.
Correct.
And the soldier helped him.
Correct.
After, because
there was a third letter. There was a third letter. We're not there yet. At this point, things are looking very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. Meaning, I don't know in all of history if there was ever such a thing like this, where all of the countries in the world, literally all of the countries in the world had a decree to destroy all of the Jewish inhabitants. I don't know if there was another time in history like this.
Isn't that supposed to be when Mashiach comes? When the entire world...
It could be. I'm just saying, every other time, let's say the Holocaust, so you had...
The Holocaust, they were on their way.
The Yamach Shemam, they would have wanted to destroy all the Jews in the world, but meaning Jews were scattered all over, and America didn't necessarily buy into that, or whatever it was. Didn't necessarily, I say. Didn't necessarily. So I'm saying is, in this regard, since Achashverosh was the king of 127 provinces, which was seemingly the entire civilized world, when he sends out such a letter, this has really serious ramifications. I did see, I'll say on the side here, something that I did see, which I didn't look too much into it, but apparently there are mefarshim who learn there were other countries that Jews lived in that did not necessarily accept this letter. I don't know how it works with the Gemara, because the Gemara seems to say he ruled the entire world, but apparently there is such a, I don't know exactly what the
United States, there is the states and then they have different rules in each state compared to the...
Maybe.
You know what I mean? If it's Florida...
I always understood, Kipshuto, that that's the amount of countries there were. I did see somebody was speaking about this.
But I know that there is...
That were more and those weren't included. That I don't know. That I don't know. Because the Gemara seems to say that was the whole world at that point. So.
Everybody cannot be open.
But the bottom line is this creates a serious problem for the Jewish people, and the Gemara comments on this and says that throughout history we had many Nevi'im, many Nevi'ot, prophets who tried to encourage the Jews to do Teshuvah. None of them were successful, like Hasarat HaTabat, removing the ring and giving it to Haman. What that motivated the Jews in terms of doing Teshuvah was so powerful that they did Teshuvah more than all of the Nevi'im were able to accomplish throughout history.
It's not a good sign.
Not a good sign, but that's what the Gemara says. Human nature is such that we're stubborn until there's an imminent threat in front of us. There's a real threat of destruction. Okay, we're going to skip a little bit now because I want to, God willing, over the next 2 weeks we'll go through to try to finish the story. We're going to skip now to Zayin Amud Aleph. Now I'm just going to fill you in the details as to what we did so far in between. So now in between, they send out this terrible letter. Haman has this sent out. Mordechai, who's the leader of the Jews, gets wind of this letter. He approaches Esther in the palace and he says to her, did you hear about this news? They sent out a letter to destroy the Jewish people. You have to do something. So what should I do? So they agree. She has to go into Melech Achashverosh. She has to go into his inner chambers and exhort him, talk to him on behalf of the Jewish people.
But there was another story that she was kidnapped, no?
Hold on. She already was taken. This already was after she was taken. So she says the problem with that is the rule of the Malchut, the rule of the government is no one's allowed to enter the chamber of Achashverosh unless you're summoned, unless you're called. And if you do go in without being summoned, the natural thing is you're dead. Mm-hmm. The only way that you're not dead is if the king stretches out his scepter. Scepter is a shavit hazahav, and he touches the person who's. Then they give a, what do they call that? They let you
green light.
They give
acquittal, a pass. Yeah, they let you go. Okay. So she says, so what should we do? So they agree that all of the Jewish people are going to fast for 3 days. 3 days. And this went over Pesach, by the way. It was Pesach, because we're talking about 14, 15, 16th of Nisan. Fast through Yom Tov, and if we have the schut of all of the Jews praying and fasting, then I'm going to go in. That'll be a schut that should help me to receive what we need to. So what happens? Ultimately, after the 3 days, she goes into Achashverosh, and she tells him, I want to do a party. So it's a miracle actually, is that she goes in, she's not killed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu arranges, things work out well, Baruch Hashem. And she says to Achashverosh, I want to have a party with you and one other person, Haman. You and Haman. And so he says, okay, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. No problem. Now, why does she say this? What was her cheshbon in saying, I want a party with you and Haman? Yeah, what is David?
Between them, make him jealous.
Beautiful. Yeah. So the Gemara says a number of reasons. Yeah. One of the reasons the Gemara brings why she did this, she wanted Achashverosh to start to get suspicious, to start to think that her and Haman were staging a rebellion against him. Why is it that the only one you're inviting to the party is the second in command? The second officer, Haman. No other officer in the kingdom. It looks a little shady. So, and that's what ended up happening. One of the reasons that's brought down. It sounds like there's some rebellion. So it says, Balayla hahu, that night, Nadedashna Tamelech, the king couldn't sleep. We spoke about this, I think we mentioned this briefly yesterday. Why couldn't he sleep? So one of the reasons the Gemara tells us is because he started to think about what happened that day. We had this party. Esther only invited Haman. Why would she only invite Haman? So she was able to make him start to think like this. She was effective actually in this. Probably they're trying to make a rebellion against me. They want to kill me and take over them two. But then he started to think to himself, well, if that's true, there must be someone that knows about this that would tell me about it. I have no friend in the whole kingdom who must know, somebody must know about this plot. And so it must be, why is nobody telling me about this? It sounds like paranoia, but you understand, we have to realize also, at this time in history, the greatest way to ascend to the throne was assassination. That was the normal thing. You kill the king, you take over. They were paranoid kings because of that. So it's logical what he was concluding, which Esther put into his mind. Well, why is it that she invited Haman? Because they want to have a plot against me. Well, why is nobody telling me? It must be because somebody did me a favor in the past and I didn't pay them back. So I created a resume for myself that people know if they do favors for the king, he doesn't pay them back.
So they don't tell
Who
you.
was it? So they say, bring out my book of history, and they start, who's the guy that did me a favor? Mordechai Tzaddik. We know that he saved the king's life when there was a story with Bigtan and Teresh, that they were speaking in Tarshish, and they didn't realize...
Right?
They wanted to kill the king. They didn't realize that Mordechai understood the 70 languages because he was a member of the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court of Judaism. He told Esther. Esther told the king Bishmo. And from that we actually learn, that's a source for that idea. So, I didn't do Mordechai a favor, so I have to do him a favor. Suddenly, who walks into the front door? Haman walks in. It's unbelievable. The story, it's so... one after the other, everything is organized in a perfect way. Haman walks in. What was Haman's plan to walk in? He wanted to tell Achashverosh, I built these gallows, 50 amot tall, and I want to hang Mordechai on this. I can't wait till 13th of Adar in 11 months from now. I want to kill Mordechai today. So he walks in. Achashverosh sees Haman and he thinks to himself, let me see what's going on here. Because he's, in his mind, what is this Haman? Haman is trying to assassinate the king. You understand what's going on? So he says to Haman, what shall be done to the man that the king wishes to honor? What's he saying is, he wants to see what will Haman react to this. So Haman goes on to say that this person should wear the royal clothing, he should ride on the royal horse. Now, what do you think that does in the head of Achashverosh? It reinforces what he's assuming. Haman is assuming he's referring to himself. And he's saying he wants to usurp my position. He wants to take my royal clothing, my horse. This reinforces what Haman, what Achashverosh thought. You understand? Everything worked out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu organized it. B'teva, within nature. So now Achashverosh says, okay.
He started to think that he
really wants to take it. I mean, that's what he's trying to do. Literally in my lifetime, he's trying to do that.
He wants to hang Mordechai, the only person knows.
Who's not bowing down to him, right? That's it. So the king says, okay, beautiful. All the things that you said to do, they should be done, but not for you. They should be done for Mordechai. And you understand, to say to do these things for Mordechai is the greatest slap in the face that Haman could possibly receive. Mamish. Because why? Because Mordechai represents... Can you turn your phone off, please? Because Mordechai represents everything that Haman cannot stand. Of all the wealth, and he had tons of children, he had all kinds of... He lived in the Berumo Shalolam. All of the physical things you could think about, he owned. And he said, none of this is worth anything because Mordechai is the one who disregards my presence. There's more to talk about. We're not going to get into it right now. And now, Achashverosh says, go take Mordechai, dress him up in the royal clothing, put him on the royal horse, and schlep him around town, around Shushan, saying, this is what shall be done to the man that the king wishes to honor. It's the biggest bizayon Haman could possibly receive. Right? Now let's get into the story. So it's Tet Zayin Amud Aleph now. So I'm going to skip a little bit just till we get to the main part here. Haman is forced to listen to Achashverosh. He doesn't have a choice. So he takes the garments, he takes the horse, and he goes to find Mordechai. Now where's Mordechai? So Mordechai B'Shar Ha'ir, Mordechai is in 3 days of fasting. It means they were fasting still. This was the end of the third day, it sounds like. So they're still busy fasting. They're fasting. But this was also the 16th of Nisan. What is special about the 16th
Pesach.
of Nisan? It is Pesach, but more than that.
Not what,
Yeah, no. Yom HaNef. What is it? What is it referred
They're
to?
giving the dvoah for the
Beautiful,
Kohanim.
excellent. Not the Kohanim, but it's used Korban HaOmer. What was done on the 16th of Nisan is that's when they would bring the Korban HaOmer, which was a barley offering, in the Beit HaMikdash.
And Shavuot, they can-
And what would it allow? It would allow
To eat Chadash.
eating the new grains, the Chadash. Until then you eat Yashan, now you eat Chadash. So it was the 16th of Nisan, and even though they didn't have Beit HaMikdash, they couldn't bring the Korban Omer. Mordechai was sitting with the rabbis and teaching them the halachot of Omer, because that's what would happen today. They would have brought a flour offering, and he wanted to show them how it was done. Let's jump into the story. So Haman went and he found that the rabbis were sitting in front of Mordechai, and he was showing them this halakha of tenufa, of kmitza, of taking the flour offering and burning it. But when they saw Haman was approaching them with a horse, they didn't know why Haman was approaching them. All they knew was that Haman hated Mordechai. So they got scared. They thought maybe he's bringing a horse to take Mordechai to jail or to kill them. They didn't know. So Amar Lehuda Rabbanan, Mordechai said to the rabbis, Hai Rishia lemiktal nafshi ka'ati. He said, probably Haman's coming to kill me. Zilu mekamei dilatechavu begachalto. So go away so you don't get burnt by his coal. Meaning, go away so you don't get damaged, you don't get hurt. Ba'ishaita at that time, Netatev Mordechai v'kamle letziluta. Mordechai wrapped himself in a talit and he started to pray. Okay? So Mordechai disregards Haman being there. He wraps himself in a talit and he starts to daven to Hashem. So he starts to do. Okay? Atam and Haman, what option did he have? Mordechai's davening. He needs to put him on the horse and dress him in the bigdei malchut, but he's davening. What am I going to do? So Haman stays there. V'yativ lo kamayu. He sits down. He takes a seat. He's waiting for Mordechai to be done. Right? V'oricha desalig Mordechai letzilute. He waited till Mordechai was done praying. Amar lahu. Then Haman said to Mordechai, "B'ma yaskitu? What were you teaching the rabbis?" He saw him doing something with flour and showing him. What were you teaching them this halacha? So Amrulay, they said, Bizman shebeit hamikdash kayam. They said to Haman, when there was a temple, mand min adev mincha. If somebody donated a flour offering, they bring a fistful of flour. It's a little bit of flour, and they would burn a little bit of flour, and that would be a kapara. So it's a reference to this type of an offering. So Haman said back, your little fistful of flour has atoned, has pushed away my 10,000 talents of silver. Meaning, what was he saying? The korbanot that you used to do had such power that my whole efforts over here are being ruined. That's what he was saying. Amar lei, so Mordechai turned back to Haman and he said, Rasha, wicked one, Eved shekana nechasim, if a slave purchases property, Eved lemi unechasim lemi. Who owns the Eved and who owns the property? The master. Now, I'm not going to get into it right now, but Haman was actually a slave of Mordechai. He was a slave of Mordechai. So he said, you think you own 10,000 talents of silver? Whatever you own, I actually own. That's why Haman actually couldn't stand Mordechai in a large part, because he understood anything that he really owned wasn't his to own.
Haman was a slave of Mordechai.
Haman was a slave of Mordechai. We'll speak about it a different time, but Kitzer, that's what, you don't own anything. You think you own everything? You don't own anything. Okay. So Amar Lei, so now Haman turns to Mordechai and he says, okay, look, I need to go through this. I'm going to do what I have to do. Kum lavush hanimani v'rachovai susya. Wear the royal garments and go on the royal horse. That's what I need to do. Debai lecha malka. That's what the king requested. So Marley, so Mordechai says back. He says, wait a second. Process. Lo yachilna adayalna lebeibani ve'eshkol lemazia delav oreach ara leishtamushe b'mani demalka hachi. I've been fasting for 3 days. I'm not clean. I need to take a shower. I need to take a shave. We learned parts of this maybe. I spoke parts. I need to take a shower. I need to take a shave. I need to go to a bathhouse. I need to take a haircut. So before I put on the royal garments and go on, I have to look respectful, right? Presentable. Shadra Esther va'asartinu lekulu beibani ve'kulu umni. Esther sent out a message to all of the bathhouse attendants. Go home. You're free of work today. All of the barbers, go home. You're free of work today. So then what ended up happening was Mordechai needed to take a bath and he needed to take a haircut. Apparently, you need attendants for both of these things. So, there's only one guy here. Haman, Baruch Hashem. So Haman was now forced into the position of not only putting the clothes on Mordechai, but preparing Mordechai literally like an eved, like an attendant over here. So he helped him get a bath, he gave him a haircut. That's what ended up happening. As he was giving Mordechai the haircut, he groaned. Haman made like a sigh. This is terrible. This is like the greatest bizayon for him. So humiliating. Amar Le.
He was a barber also.
Amar Le. So Mordechai said back to Haman, what are you getting so upset about? He says back, the Gemara quotes, that you were a barber. You used to be a barber.
Yeah.
So what do you think? You think you're so great and you can't give a haircut? You know how to do haircuts very well. No problem. And he goes on to say, fine. For 22 years you were a barber in Kfar Kartzim, someplace. Okay, finally they finished with the bath. They finished with the barber. Fine. Finally, they put on the royal clothing, and now Mordechai is ready to go. We're ready to go. Okay. So Amar Sak v'rachav. This we spoke about on Shabbat. This point, we mentioned it at the Chabura in the morning at 8 a.m. So Haman said, "Okay, look, we're done, but let's get on the horse. I'll take you around. Get this over with." So Mordechai says back, "I'm so exhausted from my fasting. I don't have energy. I can't climb on the horse." We spoke about this, remember? So Haman bent over, and Mordechai stepped on him to get on the horse. You see? When he stepped on, he didn't just step on him, he gave him a kick. He kicked Haman. Kick. You understand? Unbelievable. He gave him a kick. So Haman turned to me and said, I have a kasha. Wait a second. We know it says in Mishlei, Shlomo HaMelech teaches us, Binfol oivecha al tismach. When your enemy falls, you're not allowed to rejoice. You're not allowed to be happy. I'm down clearly right now, but to give me a kick, it's like rejoicing. You're not allowed. So Mordechai says back, that's said by others, not regarding you. Now this is not clear. I want to just point something out. Is it that he is Amalek, or is it Sonei Israel in general? This is different ways to look at this. But either way, not a kasha. You're allowed to get a kick. Not a problem. Fine. So Haman is walking around town now. Mordechai's on the horse. You could imagine the scene for a second. Everybody knows Haman is the second officer in command. He is the top officer. And everybody knows Haman hates Mordechai. Everyone knows that. And he's going through the streets. Try to imagine the scene for a second. And Haman's calling out, this is what shall be done to the man that the king wishes to honor. This is literally the most disgraceful day of Haman's life, probably. Probably more than when he was a barber. Right? This is really the epitome of, for him, the epitome of disgrace. All right, I think we have to cut short. We'll continue with the story, God willing, next week. But already...
The rest of it, you told us last week, the rest of it.
I told you the whole thing?
His dog was up there.
Okay, so you know. But anyways, Kitzer, what's an amazing thing is, and I just want to point this out, as we were going through it, everything that happened here seems like nature. There was no miracle, right? There was no overt miracle. There was no obvious miracle. Everything, Esther put it in his head, and then he came in, and he thought, the whole Purim story was Ki'ilu b'teva, through nature. It wasn't in any miraculous sort of way. There was no, miracle that came down from Shamayim and saved the Jewish people.
We take it for granted, but it's not.
But it's an amazing. What do you mean? What are you saying?
Like you're doing pidyon haben,
right?
There is like a baby born, and everything is good, and we think that it's for granted, like you mentioned it. Mm-hmm. And so this is why we have to do pidyon haben.
Beautiful.
Because it's a miracle.
Beautiful.
We just take it for granted. But it's not
what Tan's saying, he's adding, is that everything in life is like this, Be'etzem. Everything that we take for granted that seems to be part of nature, really that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking to us, acting for us, taking care of us through nature. I once spoke to a doctor. You remember Eddie Esses? Remember Eddie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
good guy.
Of course.
I remember I was once speaking to him. He is what's it called? A vein specialist. I don't know what it's called. Vascular.
Wasn't he a cardiologist? I think he was.
Is he? Okay, I don't know. Maybe I think he was telling me he dealt with veins. I don't remember, but he was telling me. Oh no, that's what it was. He was telling me that they had an operation where they can use robots in order to put something through the veins and then operate in this tiny capacity within the human body. And he said it's so unbelievably sophisticated. So he said, what you find sometimes by doctors is they're the biggest kofrim. They're the biggest deniers in God, because they say, look, we're the ones who are in control. But the ones that have their heads screwed on straight, they say, look at the wonders that God did for us, that he built the body with such sophistication. You could have literally mekatzeh lekatzeh, one side to the other. That's what he was telling me, I remember. He said, it's so sophisticated. Our bodies are so sophisticated. All we have to do is look at nature and we recognize there's a Borei Olam. There's a creator of reality, because it's too sophisticated to just have been Big Bang. It's too sophisticated to just have always have been there, or some sort of other philosophy that others believe in. It's all a matter of how you look at it. So in the Purim story, it's a big message, which is it's all Kederech HaTeva, and we were saved. But that's the greatest ness.
Yeah.
It's the greatest miracle is Kederech HaTeva.
Hashem don't like to make things out of the teva.
Exactly.
Make it look like
Exactly.
it's normal. Not people.
All right, we'll stop here, Chevra. Bezat Hashem, we'll pick up tomorrow night. Actually, we're going to have a class at Matans, again, 12 o'clock. Bakasha. Sorry, not 12 o'clock. 8:15, excuse me. 8:15. And they'll pick up next week. Yeah, Yosef, what's up?
So no, the key word is v'nafalchu. Everything was transformed. Everything that was supposed to happen actually flipped over on completely reversed.
Exactly.
That's v'nafalchu. That's the one word that could describe the miracle.
Exactly.
V'nafalchu.
Such a turn. And so drastic also. One moment, Haman's up here. He's going to destroy the Jews. The next moment is literally the greatest of disgraces. Like, such a drastic change.
And that's the power of Adar.
It sounds like a message.
The power of this month is v'nafalchu. It can transform anyone that's down.
Beautiful.
Can be completely changed.
I'm going to write it
You can be
down.
completely down, and then all of a sudden everything can.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, we'll stop here.